Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Reagan Allegri, and I am the principal here at Heritage. And so we're so happy to host you tonight for an information night regarding fentanyl, and then some other really important information that we want to get into the hands of parents. Because as you know, or you may not know, this problem is definitely here and it's present, and something that we want to help educate not only our students but our families on. And so thank you for saying yes. I am a parent as well, and so I absolutely know how busy this time of the year is, between sports and activities and end of the year, and then just also exhaustion. So thank you for making this a priority tonight. We look forward to hoping that this grows each year so we can continue to have all of this information forward-facing for our community. So just a couple of quick thank yous. I do want to thank our Clay County Sheriff's Department for being willing to participate in this. We have many experts in the field. I am not one of them. I can just host the building. And so I'm going to hop off the stage here very quickly, but I want to thank the Clay County Sheriff Department. I also want to thank LAFI, which is the Liberty Alliance for Youth. You'll notice if any of my Heritage families, and I think all of our school families, we try and send out as much information from LAFI that we can, little tidbits, things that can help conversation starters with our kids. So a great partnership with LAFI. Also Beacon Health, which provides so many services to our kids and our families. And then last but not least, our Liberty Public Schools Health and Student Services Department, making this a priority tonight and saying, and not having it be something that we talk about, but actually something that we do. So really appreciate y'all being here. I'll be around here in a little bit. You're not gonna need any information from me, but other than maybe how to get out of this building. So thank you for being here. I am gonna hand it over to Sergeant Jeremy Farmeyer at this time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Regan. Thanks for hosting us and allowing us to be here tonight to do this. Again, I know everyone's super busy. We have a high school graduate in our family. My son graduates here next couple weeks, so we are extremely busy too, so I get it. But we're going to kind of jump right into this. We're going to talk. So tonight we're going to talk about fentanyl mostly. We're going to talk about a little bit about the drugs that we're seeing out there on the streets, what we deal with. So I am the supervisor for the Clay County Sheriff's Office Narcotics Unit, and been the sergeant for about the last year and a half, 2 years now. And basically a little bit about what we do is we investigate all narcotics crimes in Clay County. That even includes for the cities. With our drug task force, if we adopt cases from cities like, say, Liberty, North Kansas City, Kearney, Smithville, all the cities in Clay County, if they have narcotics cases that they feel that rises to our level, we will adopt those cases from them. We will work up those charges. We will test narcotics, things like that. We'll kind of do the legwork, put the investigation together. If we have someone who is dealing drugs in that city or anything like that, we kind of do that. We also handle all narcotics investigations that come through the county, through the sheriff's office, from the deputies out there working the streets, even through the SNARs, suspected narcotics activity reports that we get, which you can access on our website, the Clay County Sheriff's Office website. You can anonymously send in a tip if you see suspicious activity in your neighborhood, and we all know what that looks like in our neighborhoods, who belongs. If there's certain houses that might have more traffic than others, coming all hours of the day, night, there for a few minutes or so, you can submit that to us, and it goes not only to myself, but it goes to all the other 6 investigators that I have in my unit, and we all see that, and then we can work on that from there and investigate that and see if there's anything further that needs to be done with that. So that's a little bit of history that we do. We buy drugs undercover. We send CIs in to buy drugs. We do all that typical stuff too, and a few other operations that we help general investigations with. So we're going to jump in a little bit about what we're going to talk about with fentanyl. If I can get the next slide, and one more after that. So I do this presentation a lot with students in schools, high schools, middle school. Do this regularly at Liberty North and Liberty High School and Kearney High School as well. We just kind of started doing a few with the middle school students at Liberty Middle School. But I put this in here because it's so true. Fentanyl is the single deadliest drug threat our nation has ever encountered. Now, I've been in law enforcement since 1996. So been through going through the marijuana. We got the eradication from the government to rid of burning ditchweed, things like that. The meth coming when it first came around, the oxy when it came around the early 2000s. But fentanyl is like a game changer now of what we're seeing out there on the street, what it does to people, the toxicity of it, if I can talk, and just how highly addictive it is and what it's doing to people out there on the street. Next slide. Fentanyl, so what is fentanyl? Fentanyl is, it's a synthetic opioid, falls in the same family as like with heroin, morphine, hydrocodone, things like that, in the same family. It is a synthetic. It was made in 1959 in a lab by a chemist who was looking to create a better solution than morphine. And then he ended up creating fentanyl. So fentanyl's been used for years in hospitals and medical settings. And obviously this is a different fentanyl that we're dealing with. It's not the same as the medical grade fentanyl as you'll see here later on in the slides. I have some better pictures coming up, but you're going to see a little bit of a little closer of what a lethal overdose of fentanyl looks like. But we have it come not only in the powder form, like you see there in that big white mound right there, but as long as, like I said, in the other pill forms there as well, and other kind of different forms. Fentanyl is a Schedule II through the Substance Control Act, and so it falls in with that, like with cocaine, meth, and everything like that. Next slide. All right, there's a better picture. So on the tip next to that tip of that pencil and next to that penny, that is 2 milligrams of fentanyl. So according to the CDC and DEA, we go off the numbers that they use. That is enough for a lethal overdose of fentanyl. Fentanyl itself in the powder form, and we say it's powder, but it's actually more of a salt-based. It's more granular than you would like, say, flour, baby powder, powdered sugar, something like that. So it's more granular. So I like to use the analogy of it's like basically those amounts right there is equivalent to about 5 or 6 grains of table salt. And those 5 to 6 grains of table salt in the fentanyl form is enough that you could possibly overdose and die from. Now, with fentanyl, with it being synthetic, so it's made in a lab, there are now people that they are making different analogs or different strains of fentanyl. So the naked eye, you can't tell whether it's one kind or the other, but there's different kinds out there. We actually have an instrument that we can test this stuff with, and it will tell us whether it's regular fentanyl or it'll tell us if it's a different form of fentanyl. Like there's acetylfentanyl, a butylfentanyl, carfentanil, and there's like hundreds of these different strains of it. Carfentanil is one of the deadliest. Carfentanil is the most powerful form of fentanyl. Like I said, you would never know it by looking at it if it's one kind or the other. But carfentanil is deadly enough that if you take those amounts that's up there on the screen and you cut those in half, that is enough for you to overdose and die from of carfentanil. And we have seen some of that here in Clay County. A lot of this stuff is getting passed from doper to doper. They don't know what's what. They can't tell. You can't tell by looking at it what strain is what. So they don't know exactly what they're getting. But we're seeing that in some of the stuff that we're recovering and some of the evidentiary items that we get from some of our cases. Next slide. Okay, we've got a little video here if we can do that.
Hey, listen up. Too many kids nowadays are dying from drug overdoses. What you're about to hear can save your life.
Fentanyl is a deadly drug that is being made into fake pills and mixed into other drugs to drive addiction. Just one pill can kill.
Overdoses related to fentanyl have been increasing at a rapid rate here in California, mostly among young people. These cases have been growing at an alarming rate, especially here in our community.
Fake pills with fentanyl are made to look like other pharmaceuticals. These fake pills can be easily found online and contain no legitimate medicine.
Fentanyl is also made in a rainbow of colors, so it looks like candy. It only takes a small dose of fentanyl to be deadly, such as the amount found on the tip of this pencil.
Fentanyl can cause confusion, drowsiness, and dizziness, as well as other symptoms listed on the screen, which in some cases can cause respiratory failure and lead to death.
This is my son, Alexander. He died at 14 years old from fentanyl poisoning.
This is our daughter, Jessica. She was 29 years old when she was killed by fentanyl.
This is my daughter, Alex. She was murdered at 20 years old by a drug dealer who sold her a counterfeit pill made of fentanyl.
This is my son, Daniel Joseph Puerta Johnson, killed at the age of 16 by illicit fentanyl.
This is my son.
Visit DEA.gov/onepill for more information and other resources for parents and caregivers.
If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to an adult you trust or call the county's Department of Behavioral Health Substance Use 24-hour helpline.
Please don't do drugs. We need you alive. If you're struggling with drugs, reach out and get help right away.
All right, so I put that in there so when students see this, they can kind of see what other students are saying about this stuff, rather than me just, kids listening to adults talk, not always exactly. So I want them to understand what we are seeing. So I use this video to show them that not only like where this was filmed at in California, but this happens here. This is here in Kansas City as well. When they start having the parents up there talking about their students, like particularly the dad who said, my daughter Alexis was murdered at the age of 20. That's exactly how we've been treating these. That's what we treat these overdose deaths like now. If we can prove it, and if we can walk it back to where that victim received their deadly dose of fentanyl from, we will submit charges on that person who dealt that. We have been involved in now since this really kind of kicked off in COVID. Since about 2020, 2021, we've been involved in upwards about 15 overdose deaths at this point, some as young as 14. So we, it's always been in the past where, you hear in the news, well, they die of an accidental overdose. Well, and they just move on. We've been kind of doing that different. Since this has been killing kids more frequently, especially when this first started hitting the streets, we were like, we need to look at this a little bit differently. We talked to the prosecutors, our local prosecutor, Zach Thompson. We had a meeting with him. He was like, hey, if you guys can show where they get this stuff from, we do the toxicology, we do the autopsy, we show what was in their system when they died. He goes, I have no problem whatsoever. I will file charges on that person who dealt that fentanyl. And even at the federal level in the Western District of Missouri, at the federal courthouse downtown, I've done cases as well where I've submitted through the federal level where they have charged people for dealing this stuff where someone has died from this. At that level, they use it more of a sentencing enhancement. With one of our cases that kind of began in 2020 and carried on into 22. We actually put several people in federal prison in Clay County. That was a group of kids that were about 24 to 25 that were selling hundreds and hundreds of these pills. And actually two girls had died from them selling these pills. They are all now serving time in federal prison from this. One girl was from Olathe and another girl was from Platte County. She was a Park Hill South student. So that's kind of stuff, that's what we are doing now, trying to combat some of this. And then also, on top of that, we're getting into schools, talking to kids about this stuff, what this stuff is, what they can look for. And I feel like it's working. Before I started doing these a few years ago with the students, they would be like, no one really knew what fentanyl was. And I always start off with each class, I start off with like, who knows fentanyl? Who knows what it is? What do you know about it? And they're all usually like spot on. You get all kinds of hands raised up, and it's usually pretty spot on. They know what this stuff is now. They know what it does to you and what it can look like and things like that. So, and that's kind of the whole goal. I want them to know this stuff, to what to look out for. You can go to the next slide. So this just kind of speaks to the sheer volume and number of these pills that are coming into this country. Nearly 80 million of these things. These pills are so small. They can be concealed easily in the bags. I've seen them come in the mail to Kansas City up here. They are coming in by the thousands up here, if not in the million as well. Next slide. I put this in for the students to see. This is what some of these drugs will do to you. This is what they will, I can't use the actual photos of the cases that we have because I can't show them that, but we can still pull off the internet. I mean, these are legit, what it does to people. The top, that's fentanyl use up at the top. That's what it does to you. The bottom, that's meth use at the bottom there. You can go to the next one. The top, that's meth use. Bottom, meth also. You can see, first thing you notice right off the bat, she's missing her front teeth from smoking it. First thing that meth will do is gets in your teeth are your most vulnerable part when you're with these drugs, and all these drugs through your system goes through your teeth. And from smoking the meth, that's the first thing they'll lose. They'll start losing their front and top and bottom teeth. Where does this primarily come from? We've all heard Mexican drug cartels. We've all seen Narcos Mexico, everything like that. That's real. That's where this stuff comes from. A lot of this started with the Sinaloa drug cartel, which is El Chapo's cartel, which is now ran by, which he's now suing the government because he doesn't get enough free time out in Florence, Colorado. But it's run by one of his sons now. One's been captured in Mexico. There's also now been a realliance of some of the cartels down in Mexico. Some have taken over others. The predominant one that has come out now in northern Mexico is the new Jalisco Generation Cartel. That's the one that actually is here in Kansas City. They have representatives in Kansas City. They will use, primarily it's in KCK, but they will use loosely affiliated gang members from different gangs like in Kansas City and KCK that will handle their business for them up here. They will kind of their enforcement and things like that so that their regular members can do the distribution part, and then they'll rotate them out every few months. So that's where a lot of that comes from. They get their chemicals from China. They'll get them shipped in into Mexico, and they'll do it, make the stuff in warehouses and in the jungles and things like that down in Mexico. So these are the pills that we deal with. As you can tell, some of them are very, very hard to tell apart. Anytime we see any of these pills out in the field now, we pretty much assume these are the counterfeit fentanyl. Very, very rarely do we actually see the real Percocet pills anymore. And that's what these are designed to look after. These are supposed to be legit Percocet pills prescribed. Why the cartels picked this particular pill to make these, I don't know, but that's what they did. They stuck with it. We are seeing a few different kinds of pills they've done too. They will also use Xanax bars that they will counterfeit. And I'm hearing they're kind of trying out other different kinds as well. Next slide. This is a pill press. This is how they make these things. We have got a Citizens Academy going on right now, and I just did this presentation a couple weeks ago in there. And there actually was a guy that's in our Citizens Academy that works for a pharmaceutical company in South KC. And he told me that pill press right there, yeah, it can make up to 6,000 pills an hour. He says, but they've got machines now that will make up to like, in a day's time, they can make up to 500,000 pills in a day. So they say, he goes, those machines are not all that hard to get a hold of. I would not doubt that, you know, if the cartels is making, the cartels are making billions of dollars off of this stuff, of these drugs being sold up here. So I can't imagine that they're investing their money in more efficient ways to making these. So this here, so I talked about fentanyl being in a medical grade. This is a legit pharmaceutical grade fentanyl lab. So as you can tell, as you expect, governed, you know, looked over by the FDA, and that is all stainless steel, of course. Everything is scientific. Everybody, you know, wearing his Tyvek suit and everything like that. Versus this is a lab. The next slide will show. That is a fentanyl lab that was seized in Mexico. You can see in this picture right here, in this 55-gallon drum, that's full of fentanyl right there. So a kilo of fentanyl, which is 2.2 pounds, 1 kilo of fentanyl is enough to kill 500,000 people by CDC and DEA standards. That is basically the population of Kansas City. The greater Kansas City population is like 480-some thousand in the last census, I believe. So that's just 2.2 pounds. That in there is about 30 pounds, 40 pounds, something like that of of straight fentanyl. So yeah, that's how much they're making. This is a bunch of the paraphernalia that we see. I particularly tell the students, I said, pay attention to those foils. So those foils is the telltale signs of someone using fentanyl, particularly with these black lines on here. When you see these black lines like this, that's where they are actually smoking the pills. And when we first started coming across this stuff in 2020, I was interviewing someone who was caught with this, a student actually, and he had some of these like this. And I said, what's with the foil and the black lines? What are you doing with that? And he's like, well, that's from you smoking the pill. And I'm like, you're smoking the pill. It didn't make any sense to me. He goes like, yeah, you smoke it, you inhale the smoke that comes off of this, and it hits your brain harder, it gets you a better high. And so that is how they do it. Some of the newbies they'll take the pill, crunch it up, and snort it. But once they really get addicted and get going, they will convert it over to where they will heat the pill up from the bottom. And in fact, on that one, you can still see a little bit of a pill left, that piece of foil on the left there. They will heat the pill up from underneath. And once that pill starts getting hot, it will start moving on that foil. It will burn across the foil, and then it will start smoking, and then they will inhale that smoke off there with a straw or rolled up dollar bill or something like that. And they will get their high from that. And it will, and then pretty well knock them out. So next slide. All right, so xylazine. I'm going through this a little quickly so that we can get everybody in. But xylazine is, I don't know if anyone's heard of this stuff or not, or seen this on the news. This is something new here. It's not new to the drug world. So what they're doing, they are taking xylazine, which is a horse tranquilizer. Veterinarians use it. One of my detectives is a cattle rancher, and he actually gets a prescription for this stuff for his cattle from his veterinarian. And they are putting xylazine in now with their drugs. They're particularly putting it in with the fentanyl. They've been doing this for years out in Philadelphia. I've heard about it for a while out there, and we're going to see a video of that here shortly. But they put it in with the fentanyl because fentanyl itself is a very short high. It might last for an hour or two at the most. And when you start coming off of a fentanyl high, it makes you very, very sick. In fact, a lot of people start upping their amounts because they're afraid of getting so dope sick coming off of fentanyl. So they put the xylazine in it, and what xylazine is, like I said, it's a tranquilizer. It's not an opioid, so the way to treat it is not the same as you would treat it with like a fentanyl overdose, but it makes your high last extremely longer, like upwards of 9 to 10 hours longer than fentanyl. So they're getting a bigger bang for their buck, basically, when they get their fentanyl that's laced with xylazine. And we are starting to see that now. We've had a few cases of that now here in Clay County, of xylazine being mixed in. Like I said, I talked about that a little bit. The Narcan will not reverse the effects of xylazine. Xylazine is not approved for human use to the FDA because it has such a deadly and such a bad effect on your central nervous system. Even the drugs to counteract the xylazine is not approved for human use. So what the paramedics do, they have to treat the symptoms as best as they can. They basically will just treat it for fentanyl. But still, I tell everyone, if you see someone having an overdose from that and you think it's just xylazine, still do the Narcan, still do everything like you would for a fentanyl overdose because you just don't know. Next slide. All right, here's a video of what the xylazine is doing out east and what we're starting to see here.
Half-conscious addicts with deep sores and bent backs are becoming a more frequent sight in several countries, especially in the US, where the zombie drug has recently gained traction. The zombie drug xylazine, also known as Tranq, is originally an animal tranquilizer that is both cheap and easy to access. As a result, it has made inroads in illicit drug markets. The use of xylazine was first reported in Puerto Rico and Philadelphia in the mid-2000s, but experts say that it was in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic that its consumption increased exponentially in Philadelphia and in other states. And now in 2023, it is present in most US states. When consumed, it is known to cause necrosis in humans because it reduces blood pressure, heart rate, and respiration. Necrosis, the rotting of human tissue, can ultimately cause victims to require amputation, and that's where the drug gets its nickname, zombie drug. While Trink is not an opioid that is used by itself, drug dealers often combine it with depressants or stimulants like heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl to prolong or enhance their effects, or to increase their weight, and in turn, raise their street value. These combinations can be lethal, especially when fentanyl is involved, as fentanyl is said to be 50 times stronger than heroin, and is often itself used to adulterate other drugs like heroin and cocaine. Consumers who use the drug either knowingly or unknowingly often fall into an hours-long stupor, and once they wake up, they are already in need of another high. Treating xylazine patients is difficult, as it requires that the effects of multiple addictions be mediated, and at times that body parts with infected skin ulcers be amputated, as some grow so deep they can infect tendons and bones. Overdose reversal drugs that are often used for opioid addicts are not very effective on xylazine, making treatment even harder. Drug abuse is rampant in the US, where more than 109,000 lives were claimed in 2022 due to overdoses and other drug-related issues.
So yeah, right now, from what I'm being told, what I'm reading, doing research on this stuff, when they test some of the drugs out there on the East Coast and the eastern states out there, upwards of 80-90% of the dope that they're recovering out there is laced with xylazine. That's how much they're seeing out there. So it's only a matter of time before we're going to start seeing more and more here. I know through some people we have been with KCPD, who we work closely with a lot of their detectives as well. Through one of our CIs, they've been buying those fake M30s that's fentanyl with xylazine already mixed in with them in the pills too. So it kind of tells me that most likely those are already either being made they're getting shipped up here like that. That's what we don't know yet. We don't know where they're getting the xylazine or is put at in the chain there. So we don't know if it's coming from Mexico, if they're doing that locally or what. But so we're still working on that. Another side effect of xylazine, as you can see right there, this stuff is nasty. It will rot you. It literally will rot your flesh off your bone, because that's why it was not approved by the FDA. But of course, we all look at that and we're like, what in the world? Why in the world would someone want to make themselves look like that? That's the number one question that I get when I talk to people, and really the answer is because they don't think like we do. They are so addicted to this stuff that in their mind, their brain is telling them, if I don't get this, I'm going to die. That's what they think. They think if I don't get the money to buy this stuff, then you're not going to live to see your next high, because once they get hot, the high wears off of this stuff. The side effects of it and the potency of it, it makes them want to have to get another high right after that, because it's so addictive. And so we are seeing some of that. I was just down on a couple weeks ago. I was down on Front Street at 7 in the morning, pouring down rain, and in the Waffle House parking lot, some gal standing out there looking like that, just totally just bent over at the waist, just totally just gone. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, the cocaine or something must have kicked in, and she just started doing cartwheels through the parking lot. So, in the pouring down rain. So, I mean, it's weird to see, but it's sad, because this is just taking over so many people that we are coming to encounter with here in Kansas City. So, a little bit of what an opioid overdose does. So, fentanyl does three things to your body. It's going to lower your blood pressure, it's going to lower your heart rate, and it's going to lower your breathing rate. So once all those three things start happening, you start losing oxygen in your body. And once those three things start happening, get too much in there, your brain, the receptors in your brain that's receiving that opioid, your brain's going to say, wait a minute, well, I got too much of this stuff. I need to protect myself. Your brain's an organ. It's going to protect itself. And it will start shutting other organs down in order to protect itself. And once that starts happening, then unfortunately it's just a slippery slope from there. Everything else starts kicking in from that point. And this can happen in seconds. Someone can overdose on fentanyl in a matter of seconds, and it will just knock them right out. And once they're knocked out, then everything else starts kicking in. And you'll start seeing things like blue lips or nails, dizzy and confusion. They can't be woke up. That's a very common one. They will be knocked out to the point they can't even wake them up. Do a sternum rub, it won't wake them up. Then you'll start hearing the most common, and you're going to see this in a video here in a second, they'll start making like snoring sounds, gurgling sounds. And that's them trying to get air, trying to get oxygen. That's kind of one of the last things before they pass away. You'll start hearing sounds like that. And then the slow and weak, no breathing. And then before they're too far gone, the difficulty staying awake. That's very, very common too. All right, so here we have an overdose. This is police body cam footage from Florida. This is from like 2018, I think. So this is fairly new for them to see. Get him on the ground. Get him on the ground. Sir. So you hear those sounds right there? That's what I was talking about, the sounds that they make.
What's his medical history?
I don't know.
They just picked him up 10 minutes ago. You just picked him up?
Yeah, he's like, I need some money. Can you put me to work? And I said, yeah.
He's got a pulse. He's breathing, so. Can you grab gloves? He's not breathing. I don't know if drug related. Give me a flashlight. I can't see his eyes.
In the unedited version, you can see his eyes. They're totally rolled back, pinpoint. I mean, he's not there. He's trying to do a sternum rub there to get him to wake up.
Go left nostril. 5-6 Narcan deployed in the left nostril.
Use mine?
Excuse me?
Use mine?
No, just the one.
This one?
14, 15. Let's see, they might get here before
No,
you.
it doesn't go there. It's right there.
Go ahead, so put it on. There you go. There we go, hold on. All right, take it off. Got a pulse, barely breathing. You just sort of take a breath. His eyes are
You'll see right here at the end, he's going to come to. Okay. So he ended up making a recovery. That's about how long it takes. It doesn't show it. It only shows him giving one dose of Narcan. We tell everybody give him one dose. If you don't start seeing anything within 30 seconds or so, give him another dose. You can't take too much Narcan. You can't overdose from it. It's not going to hurt you. I could take some right now, and it's not going to do anything to you. The only thing it does, it counteracts that fentanyl, that opioid that's in your system is the only thing it will do. So there's two doses come in a pack. You can get Narcan for free now in Clay County, the Clay County Health Clinic or Health Department out off of Church Road at the out there. But basically, so when I tell everybody, it's super simple. You don't even have to be laying on their back. They can be sitting in a chair or something. But it's just like that medicine Flonase. You put it up their nose, give it a squeeze. That medicine will go straight up to their brain. And what it does is, for me, for layman terms to understand it, basically it creates a brick wall in your brain, and it stops those brain receptors from receiving that opioid. And by doing that, so it'll start bringing them out of that overdose state. And we tell them, typically around here, if we're giving people Narcan, it's going to be probably 3 or 4 doses they're going to have to get. But I always tell everybody too, the first thing to do is call 911, get an ambulance coming, because they carry the liquid version, naloxone, on the ambulances, and they can get a naloxone drip going that will give them the continuous medicine so they be sure to come in out of that overdose, and there's not a chance for them to slip back in that overdose. So that's what an overdose looks like. I tell people an overdose is it's not like what you see on TV in the movies from someone overdosing, you foam at the mouth and all that. It's as simple as you go to sleep and you just never wake back up. It's just as simple as that, just like a surgery or something. So when I'm talking to kids, of course, one of the questions I ask them is, who in here has Snapchat? Of course, all the hands go up. I tell, there we go, right there. A student back there does. I tell them, I said, that is the #1 social media where these people are targeting our kids on. Both my kids, one's a senior, one's a junior. Of course, they both have Snapchat, we're fine with, but one of the things we do, my wife and I, we continually check their phone. We know who is on their Snapchat. We know who they're talking to. We know whose stories are on there. And we make sure they know who they are, like who is this person, who is that person, things like that. So we talk a lot about making sure they know, because these people will advertise right on their stories. They're not afraid to do it. They'll advertise the pills on there, say, I got the hottest, hit me up. They'll advertise their weed on there. Marijuana now is legal in Missouri. You can buy it at a dispensary. Why would someone be selling weed on Snapchat? It's because they are lacing it now. We're seeing more and more of that. They are lacing marijuana with fentanyl now. So we are having overdoses from people just smoking marijuana. Another thing I tell when I talk to kids, I tell them, it's like, look, don't take anything from anybody unless it comes from parents, school nurse, your doctor, things like that. Even if it's from your best friend from kindergarten, because you just don't know where they got it from. And I was talking to Kearney's police chief the other day. We were talking about this. Like, drugs are not safe anymore. It's not like when we were kids, people could experiment with stuff and they'd typically be okay, but it's not like that anymore. They are lacing this stuff. They're lacing everything. You don't know what they're putting in stuff now. You got like xylazine out there and fentanyl and things like that. So we try to stress that to them. And also that, I had the same mentality once where, you don't think anything's going to happen to you. No one thinks anything's going to happen to them until it does. Like those girls that, I tell them the stories about the girls that came up from Olathe. 2 girls came up from Olathe buying 1 pill, paid $30 for it. They cut it in half. One girl snorts one half, one girl snorts the other half. They both go back to Olathe. One girl, they get back to Olathe, and one girl, they just pull in a driveway. She's roaming someone's yard, and they ring doorbell catches it. Homeowner calls 911. Ambulance and police get there. They find a girl overdosing in the yard, and they're able to Narcan and save her. And the other girl was already passed away in the backseat of the car, so she didn't even make it back to Olathe. So we try to talk about that. So that's a little bit. So that's what we're seeing. That's kind of what fentanyl is. We've got a lot of brochures back there in the back. If you need more information, you can email us through the Clay County Sheriff's Office website. We've got a link on there. And you can email us if you have questions, or we got a lot of brochures back there. Thanks for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. I'm going to turn it over. She's going to introduce Sierra here. So thank you. Thank you.
Wow, it's heavy. I know. It's such an important topic, and we're so glad you're all here. I want to introduce very briefly, this is Sierra Thomas, and Sierra is with Beacon Mental Health, formerly known as Tri-County Mental Health, and she is also a project coordinator for LAFI, the Liberty Alliance for Youth. And so Beacon Mental Health does a tremendous job at providing resources and education and things for us as parents to look for and how we can talk to our kids. And so Sierra, if you could come and after she's done, we'll just talk a little bit about what Liberty Schools does for our Narcan plan and our emergency response plan. And then if we have time for some questions, we can take those as well. Thank you, Sierra.
All right, like she said, my name is Sierra Thomas. I am the project coordinator for Liberty Alliance for Youth, which is a prevention coalition here in the Liberty area. So kind of my whole job with LAFI as well as with Beacon Mental Health is to educate and equip adults and parents who care about kids in drug prevention. So in thinking about tonight, we knew we were going to get some heavy information from our friends at the Sheriff's Department, and we wanted to really be mindful of, like, what do we do with that now, right? What can you as parents take away from this and implement today to kind of help prevent your child from maybe being in a situation like this? So a couple things we're going to cover today: the adolescent brain, the power of parents, the power of all of you in this room today, and then the 4 C's of prevention. And I'm going to be quick, so just shout at me if you have any questions along the way, or if you need me to repeat anything. Kind of everything we do is based on this fact: the brain is not fully developed until about the age of 25. Okay, I see some head nods in the room. That means we're kind of familiar with this. So what that means is that any interaction with substances is that much more risky, right? Youth under the age of about 25 are more likely to become addicted to alcohol, marijuana, nicotine, any drug out there, okay? Just a quick overview of what kind of goes on in the brain. Obviously, as we're young, we have neurons that are constantly making connections as we're learning new things, okay? As we start to get into adolescence and get a little bit older, those connections are pruned away. So the ones that are not used are kind of weakened, the connections are weakened, and then the ones that are used more often are strengthened. So for example, if I did ballet until I was about 8, by the time I'm about 16, those connections that my brain made in how to do ballet have weakened because I haven't been practicing. But if I did ballet all the way until age 16, those connections are really strong. So we can see how the lines start out really thin and then they start to get thicker over there at the end with those connections getting stronger. So that's a little bit of what's going on inside the brain. And the brain develops back to front. So you can see over here on the back, at the start of my arrow, we've got, some of the basic things developing quickly: vision, language, body awareness. All the way at the front, what develops last is that concentration, planning, problem solving. Okay, that stuff all is developing until the age of 25. So if we go to the next slide, we kind of like to think about the teenage brain as a car with good acceleration but bad brakes. Okay, so we all drove here today. We could think about what would happen if our car could go really fast, but we could not hit the brakes. So that adrenaline, coordination, emotions, desire for excitement and risk-taking is really high. And the reasoning, judgment, and self-control is maybe a little bit lower as teens and adolescents are still kind of practicing those skills, and those connections are still strengthening in their brains. So when we use substances, our brain is impacted front to back. Okay, so it starts with that problem-solving, kind of planning, concentration starts to go. So we think about, as we drink alcohol, right, we're probably not doing a ton of planning ahead. We're probably not doing a lot of problem solving as we're drinking alcohol. And then as we continue to drink, then your vision can be impaired, your coordination, all of those things will be impaired. So when we think about the teenage brain, if it is already not fully developed in this frontal cortex, and then that's the first part of their brain that is impacted, that's a problem, right? So we can see how substance use in general can impact the brain, but how it impacts our kids even more. If we go to the next slide, we can talk really quickly. So in the center of your brain, there's a piece called the amygdala. The amygdala houses kind of our reward system. So when we think about any brain, but the teen brain in this situation, there are little hits of dopamine throughout the day, right? So when they get a text from a friend or a significant other, when they get a like on social media, when they get that drink at Starbucks they like, whatever it is, just anything that, gives them that little hit of dopamine, that little reward. So this is what the teenage brain looks like just on a day-to-day basis. When we introduce substance use, however, on the next slide, you'll see that giant star is substance use. It kind of starts to take over all of the other things that once brought joy. So the text from a friend, the like on your Instagram post, the Starbucks drink, all kind of seems to fade a little bit. Those things don't bring quite the same amount of joy. What we see here is that really, really strong line, that really, really strong connection between the drug. So the drug takes it over and it says, hey, we like that, hey, we like that, hey, we like that, we need more. And it just keeps getting more and more. And when we think about the teen brain, they don't have that reasoning, that self-control quite as refined. So when the brain says we want more, they're gonna get more, right? Because they haven't quite figured that piece out. And even for adults, right, that's hard. And we have fully developed frontal cortexes. So when we think about all of that, again, I just blew through that. I could talk for an hour on that alone. So when we think about all of that, where does that leave us? What can we as parents and caring adults do? I want to emphasize you guys have a ton of power. The people sitting in this room have a ton of influence over the youth in your life. So more than 80% of 10 to 18-year-olds say that their parents are their biggest influence in their decision on whether or not to use alcohol and other drugs. And that can be either way, right? It can be my parents think it's okay, so I choose to, or my parents don't think it's okay, so I don't. But either way, more than 80% of our 10 to 18-year-olds say that their parents or guardians are their biggest influence, which just is so powerful to me. Like, what we say, what you guys say to your kids really matters. And then parents who talk to their kids and teens early and often about the harms of underage alcohol and drug use can cut their risk of using these substances in half. So nothing's a guarantee, right? But 50% is 50%, right? So just emphasizing how important it is to have these conversations, and I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of information about how we can go about doing that. So at Beacon Mental Health, we've developed a campaign called Parent Up, and within Parent Up, we kind of use the 4 C's of prevention to frame everything that we educate parents on. So the first C is to care, educate yourself about the harmful effects. You guys are already here tonight doing that, so thank you so much for that. The second C is to connect. Connection is absolutely massive in prevention. Based on those 2 stats I just shared with you guys, your connection with your kids and the way that you talk with your kids is so important. The third C is to communicate. So not assuming that your child knows that you don't approve of substance use. You need to say that, right? And having those conversations, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too. And then paying careful attention. So when we think about teens and adolescents, we think, they're getting more independence, maybe they can drive, they're getting jobs, they're doing all these things. But we need to also keep in mind that we do still need to set boundaries and rules for them and help them navigate some of those situations. So these are the 4 C's, and we're gonna dive into each of them a little bit more here. So again, caring is just about educating yourself. So educating yourself about how your child's brain develops, the effects of substance use, any trends or specific happenings in your area. So like I said, you guys are all here doing that tonight, so that's fantastic. The work that, your local prevention coalition or, your schools, any network that you're kind of plugged into is probably doing work that aligns with this type of thing. So just really plugging into those things and seeing where you fit in and where you can help get the word out there. The biggest thing in the care section is reducing risk factors and building protective factors. So when we think about risk factors, those are things that might increase the chance that your child might use substances. Some of those things we don't have control over, okay? Those can be things like trauma. They can be things like if your child is behind in their educational settings, okay? So some of those things we don't have control over. Some of those things we can help influence though. Some of the things such as self-esteem or confidence, having a network of people, whether that's at school or in your family or whatever it may be. So those are things that those are protective factors that we can build. So it's kind of like, I think of it like a scale. So there's bad things that happen to all of us, right? Those are our risk factors. And then we want to build protective factors that kind of balance that back out for our kids. So we can think of those in a lot of different ways. Connection, again, is absolutely key. So making time to listen, follow up on things that your kids say. I know everyone is so busy, right? We're all moving a million miles a minute, but just taking time to say, oh yeah, you had a test, how was that? Just following up and checking in. Spending time where you can. If you're driving in the car from the dentist, that's time you can spend with your kid, right? So just being really, really intentional about those things can make the world of difference when it comes to prevention. And then I do want to talk about meaningful meals. So on the way in, you might have seen we do have some information on the table about that. We have unplugged boxes, which are boxes you can make to put your devices in to have really intentional mealtime. You don't necessarily need a box to do that, but that idea is based on the fact that the research that shows that 4 meals a week for 20 minutes is enough to reduce the risk of substance use in kids. And those do not have to be sit down at the table formal meals. Those can be, we grab McDonald's on the way to our basketball game, right? Those can be any 20 minutes that you can set aside with your kid and just make conversation and just make those connections with them. And that can not only lower rates of substance use, but also depression. It can lead to better peer relationships, higher self-esteem, and even better grades. And that is not me just saying that. That is research that shows that is truly effective. So that is one very simple tip that parents can take and try and implement quickly. In the communicate, we just encourage early and often conversations around substance use. If you haven't started yet, it's not too late, but we do encourage people to start as early as possible, and to keep it really low key. You're not going to cover all the bases in one talk, but if you're having little talks here and there, or you're just squeezing it in kind of naturally, if you're watching a TV show and someone's using a substance on the TV show, just taking a minute to say, I know this is just a show, but I want you to know that I don't think that's okay, and I don't want you doing that, right? Or even asking them, what do you know about that substance? Have you ever seen someone using that? Just taking time to kind of weave that into your natural lives. And then setting expectations before big events, right? So if there's a dance or a prom or a graduation or someone's birthday or whatever it is, kind of having those conversations leading up to that, as well as the day of, so that kids know what your expectations are. And then just some conversation goals. Again, you don't need to try and check all these boxes in one talk, but just as you're kind of having those conversations, checking off those things, letting them know you care about them, that they can come to you if they have questions or concerns, things like that. And then last but not least is paying careful attention, if we could go to the next one. Knowing who your kids are with, setting curfew or rules around, going out or driving the car or whatever it may be. And then keeping your eye out for those signs and symptoms of substance use, and just any changes. You guys are experts in your kids, right? They're your kids. So if you're noticing something is off, just kind of following up and making sure that you're checking in on that, and then securing any substances that are in your home. And then we always encourage people to work together with the other parents in your network. So if you see something or hear something about a kid in your kid's friend group, and that parent, you feel comfortable talking with them, whatever it is, just, helping to educate other parents, whatever it is that you can do to kind of do your part within the larger community, it really does make a difference as well. So those are the 4 C's in the fastest fashion ever. So that is, if you guys want, the Liberty Alliance for Youth, that is, again, your local prevention coalition. We would love to, connect with you guys if you are interested. Parent Up, like I said, is kind of our media campaign that we run off of. So all of the 4 C's and things that we develop as far as information goes is going to be on that website or on our Liberty Alliance for Youth website. So many words in such short time. Just, okay, I'll let you do your bit. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sierra. That's great. And I didn't introduce myself at first. I'm Kathy Ellermeyer. I'm the Director of Health Services for the Liberty School District. I just wanted to let you know a few things. First of all, we're recording this tonight, and we have a website. So on the district website, we have many resources for you, and it's the Fentanyl Overdose Awareness website. It's a link within the LPS website. So if you go to, we have that new website now. If you go to For Families, you can access that through our safety and security piece or through health services. You can get, either way, you can get to the link that will give you lots and lots of resources, ways to talk to your kids, resources to watch with your kids together, things to share with them, lots of resources there. Including this recording, we will post on that website. So that's one thing I wanted to let you know. The other thing is that I want you to know that we have Narcan in every building in our district, not even every school, but also every single building that is occupied in our district by people. We have Narcan, and it can be found if you're at an event or have a situation or concerned. We have AEDs, defibrillators that we use for emergency response when someone has a heart attack or their heart stops. The Narcan is located within our AED boxes in every school and in every building in our district. So I wanted to let you know that. We also have additional Narcan in each nurse's office in our schools. And so you can be rest assured that we have that emergency plan. It's not a given though. It's not as you've seen with some of these pictures, we want prevention. We don't want our kids sharing pills or trying to take a pill to feel better or just to find that whatever they need through that way. It's just not, they're just taking such a risk because eventually they will have an overdose. It's not if, it is when they are using illicit drugs that are laced with fentanyl. The third thing I wanted to let you know is that all of our staff are trained. So we have training that we all do as Liberty employees of the school district, and that includes fentanyl, how to administer Narcan, how to recognize the signs and symptoms of an overdose. And I think one of the most keys for you as parents and for us as community members is just those pinpoint pupils. Like if you are finding somebody unconscious and you sternal rub them to see if they can get awake, but if you are looking in their eyes with a light and their pupils are just so incredibly tiny, you're just going to give them some Narcan. And we're going to have Narcan available tonight thanks to Laffey Liberty Alliance for Youth. They brought some boxes so that you guys can have a box and have, there's 2 doses in there, and you can have that. And I carry mine around with me in my purse because I'm a nurse and I'm a community member, and I want to, if I ever come upon someone, I want to have that with me. But it's just a really great safeguard to have. So anyway, we are going to open it for a little Q&A, but we're going to stop the recording now.